When we say mining, you'll probably picture digging up gold. But Bitcoin miners aren't digging for coins, they're running the world's most expensive accounting system. The coins are just a paycheck. Today, we unpack why Bitcoin pays miners new coins, what happens when those rewards run out, and why the supply stops at 21 million. So if mining isn't really about coins, what is it about? Miners do three things. They collect pending transactions broadcast across the network. They bundle them into a block, which is just a batch of transactions with a timestamp. And they add that block to the blockchain, the public ledger every participant shares. This happens roughly every 10 minutes. The job is validation, not extraction. Miners decide which transactions are legitimate, order them, and lock them into history. Without miners, there's no agreed upon record of who owns what. The coins they earn are compensation for doing this work, not the product being manufactured. How do they agree on who writes the next block? Through proof of work. Miners race to solve a cryptographic puzzle, find a number that combined with the block's data produces a hash below a target value. It's pure trial and error, burning electricity by the megawatt. The first to find a valid solution broadcasts the block, and the network accepts it. The winner gets paid. This puzzle has no shortcut. That's the point. Burning real-world energy is what makes rewriting history prohibitively expensive, and that's what secures the ledger against attack. Now the paycheck. The winning miner collects two things. First, the block subsidy. Brand new Bitcoin created out of thin air and assigned to the miner in a special transaction at the top of the block. This is how new coins enter circulation. Second, transaction fees. For every transaction in the block, the difference between the inputs and the outputs is the fee, and the miner keeps it. Users attach fees to get their transactions prioritized. The elegance here is striking. One mechanism does two jobs simultaneously. It pays for network security, since miners only mine if it's profitable, and it issues new currency on a fixed, predictable schedule, with no central bank deciding when or how much. Security and monetary policy fused into a single line of code. Here's where it gets interesting. That subsidy isn't constant. Every 210,000 blocks, roughly every 4 years, the subsidy is cut in half. This is called the halving. In 2009, when Bitcoin launched, the subsidy was 50 BTC per block. In 2012, it dropped to 25. In 2016, 12.5. In 2020, 6.25. In 2024, 3.125. Each halving is hard-coded. No vote, no committee. The software simply checks the block height and divides. Over time, the curve looks like exponential decay frozen into staircases. Issuance slows, then crawls, then approaches zero, on a schedule anyone can verify by reading the source code. After 32 halvings, the subsidy reaches 1 Satoshi, the smallest unit of Bitcoin, 100 millionths of a coin. The next halving rounds it down to zero. That happens around the year 2140. After roughly 6.93 million blocks have been mined, the total ever issued asymptotes to just under 21 million Bitcoin. One subtle wrinkle. Miners can voluntarily claim less than the full subsidy, and a few have by accident or design, so the real final supply will land slightly below 21 million. The cap is a ceiling, not a guarantee. So what pays miners after 2140? Transaction fees. Today, fees are a small slice of miner revenue, with the subsidy dominating. But as halvings continue, that ratio inverts. Fees become the larger share than the only share. The transition spans more than a century, giving fee markets time to develop. If block space stays valuable, fees alone sustain security. If not, security weakens. This is the open design question of Bitcoin's long-term model. Critics call it a cliff. Defenders call it a gradient. Either way, the experiment is locked in. A capped money supply isn't just a technical detail. It's a monetary philosophy. Central banks issue fiat currency at their discretion, expanding the supply to fight recessions, fund deficits, or hit inflation targets. Bitcoin issues currency on a schedule that no human can override. The issuer is code. The cap is 21 million. The rule is the halving. Inflation risk, in the traditional sense, is zero by construction. Whether that's wise or reckless depends entirely on what you think money is for. Critics point to Japan's lost decade, when falling demand triggered hoarding, stagnation, and a deflationary spiral. They warn Bitcoin invites the same fate, but these deflations differ at the root. Japan's came from collapsing demand. Bitcoin's comes from disciplined supply against potentially rising demand. Same word, different cause, different consequences. Is engineered scarcity a feature that protects savers, or a flaw that punishes spending? The code has already decided. The economics, we're still working out.